Teresa Amott, you are called to be the 19th president of Knox College. By the authority vested in me by the state of Illinois and the Knox College Board of Trustees, it is my honor and privilege to invest you with all of the powers, duties, and responsibilities that come with being the president of Knox College. Richard? On behalf of the entire Knox community, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, before I begin, the Knox Prairie Fire baseball team will be playing Grinnell this weekend for the division championship. Let's cheer them on with a very loud "Go Knox" that they can hear all the way to Iowa. Go Knox! Excellent. I am honored and humbled to accept the trust placed in me by the Board of Trustees. I pledge all of my energy toward bringing into being the lofty aspirations for Knox presented to me today and entrusted to my care by those representatives of the Knox community who joined me on this stage. That will go in the archives. Where's Jeff Douglas? Just wanted him to know. We've got it all set. It's on the way. In this work, I will be empowered by the support of faculty, staff, students, and alumni who constitute this remarkable college and love it with all their hearts. I will be counseled by the Board of Trustees who give so generously of their time, talent, and treasure. I will be sustained by the Galesburg community that has nurtured this college for 175 years. I will be strengthened by the courage and endurance of all who shepherded Knox College through these 175 years, including the 18 past presidents, 2 of whom, as you've heard earlier, join us today. Let us once again thank President Emeritus John McCall and President Emeritus Roger Taylor and Ann Taylor. Roger, virtually every day I turn to Denise Bailey, your miracle-working executive assistant, whom you bequeathed to me, and I say, Denise, what would Roger do? But most of all, I will be inspired by the creativity and spirit of our phenomenal Knox students. Knox students, you make me laugh, you make me cry. Sometimes you even make me dance. I act of some thank yous to all those who made this special day possible, with apologies to those of you broiling in the sun. Thank you to Jan Koren, who chaired the board during the search and the transition, and welcome to Duke Petrovich, who will assume the chair of the board this July. Thank you to the Presidential Search Committee, led by Rich Riddell, who so embodied the spirit of this community that I was immediately drawn to the position when first I met them. Thank you to the 30 Knox faculty and staff and nearly 100 student volunteers who took on the project of a presidential installation in a year already marked by multiple special events because of the 175th anniversary. And thank you especially to Bev Holmes, our Vice President of Advancement, who volunteered to manage the entire project. At other campuses, there are special events staff who do this, not at Knox. This is all done in addition to their day jobs. Although the names of all who helped with this installation are on the website, That is scant recognition for all they have accomplished. I am very grateful to them. I'm going to try to cut this a little shorter for those of you who didn't wear sunscreen. But behind the scenes, to the many facilities and dining service workers who began their day long before the rest of us, and whose work will not be over when these events appear to conclude. To them, my most special thanks. You make these events happen. Now the way to, yes, that's good, thank you. Thank you. The way to Knox for me began when Smith College beckoned to me as an undergraduate, and I took up residence at the first vibrant and caring liberal arts college community I would ultimately be privileged to join. I confess I will forever be a Smithie, one of 4 of us on the Knox campus, all of us proud of the commitment to women's education that remains the mission of that extraordinary college in Northampton, Massachusetts. As many of you know, I have been privileged to work for and belong to many fine liberal arts colleges in addition to Smith before coming to Knox. It was at these places that I developed a love for what is found here, unique in the world, where undergraduate education is our mission, our only mission, and I am grateful to these communities for all they have taught me. Especially, I am grateful to Mark Guerin, who taught me that the secret to a successful college presidency is to serve the college with humility and to never, ever believe your own press clips. Smith was the spark that kindled my academic career, but my real education, as for all of us, began at home, which was for me spread across 4 continents. My father, John Teresa Amott, a Midwesterner by birth, served his country in the US Diplomatic Corps, and met my mother, Ruchi Nascentes Coelho, in Rio de Janeiro, her birthplace. And together, our little family of 3, I knew I wouldn't say that right, we journeyed from Bolivia to Japan to Peru to Honduras to Mexico to Portugal and to Paraguay. This is why it's rather difficult for me when people say, "And where are you from, dear?" They cannot be here today. But I am grateful that a fraction of my father's diplomacy and verbal skills, he was the 1938 high school debate champion, and a fraction of my mother's wit and gift for intercultural friendship were passed on to me. So they are here in spirit. And here today are a group of extraordinary friends who have traveled from east and west. They have been with me through highs and lows, and I am so moved that they have made this journey to Galesburg for this day. Now, the most important thanks of all. As Roger and Anne well know, a college presidency is really a job for 2 people. Only one has the title, but the other shares the burden. I could not do this job without Ray Miller, whose mother and brother also join us today. Chief cook, counselor, dog walker, critic, editor, mi compañero, Ray. I timed this, and there isn't supposed to be applause, because otherwise I'm going to run long. My comments today are framed and inspired by the extraordinary speech contained in your program, the speech that inspired that remarkable piece composed by Daniel Godsell and performed by our wonderful Knox College choir. The speech, as you know, was given 75 years ago here by Galesburg's native son, the great American poet and biographer of Lincoln, Carl Sandburg. Sandburg described our pioneering founders as a fated bridge generation moving from a society of farmers and land culture into a machine age where scientists would perform the impossible things that, until done, they were told could not be done. The poet tells us, "What young people want and dream across the next 100 years will shape history more than any other motivation to be named. Youth now living, and youth as yet unborn, hold the deeds and the secrets of the folds to be unfolded in the shapes to come." So today, that is my message as well. A message about the future of Knox, the future to be enacted by today's youth, a future which is nothing less than a global future. For today's students are surely another fated bridge generation, moving us into a global information age where change will be more inclusive and more rapid than ever before in human history. I have said often that I know of no form of education better suited to prepare our students for an uncertain future than a residential liberal arts college. As we think into the future for Knox, we will need to train our vision to see out to the furthest horizon, something our pioneering founders surely did, as they imagined a town where there was prairie, a college for those without means, and a nation without slavery. So today, I want to point out 3 things on the horizon, topics on the horizon for Knox. I won't speak at any length about them, but I will flag them, because this will be the conversation that we will engage in over the coming years as we move into strategic planning and a comprehensive campaign for Knox. 3 things. First, the new culture of learning in a technologically mediated digital world. What will this new culture mean for Knox? An institution deeply rooted in place and constituted through time by face-to-face interaction. Second, diversity and inclusion in this global era. How can we think globally but act locally to build inclusive and participatory communities in a world of changing demographics and rapid globalization? And third, the sustainability imperative, building a culture of sustainability for generations to come. How shall we shape our material environment and our deep culture to live more gently on this planet? So a few words about each of these 3. The phrase, "a new culture of learning," comes from a very interesting book by Douglas Thomas and John Seeley Brown. It's well worth reading if you want to gaze out into the strange and baffling horizons of learning. The full title is "A New Culture of Learning, Cultivating the Imagination for a World of Constant Change." Now, Knox is and has been for 175 years a learned community with a scholarly faculty at our core and a faculty especially distinguished by its sacrificial dedication to Knox students. And the heart of Knox College is this relationship between teachers and students. But in the new culture of learning, we will take that one step further into a more fluid relationship, not just between teachers and students, but between teaching and learning. For in our time together at Knox, we will exchange roles. In one moment, I might be a teacher, but in the fraction of a second, I could become a learner. My consciousness pierced by the insight of another, my line of sight disrupted by something new or something old seen anew, my convictions undone or affirmed. For at Knox, we are all teachers and we are all students. We are all caught up in the culture of learning. Now, this is not a new idea that students might produce knowledge. And at the Horizons event tonight, or this afternoon rather, in the most beautiful college library in America, you will see our students as teachers as they share with you the products of their learning. For Knox pioneered this notion of undergraduate research long ago in the 1920s. But what is new is the global and digital flowering of that idea of the constant interplay between teaching and learning. With today's and tomorrow's technologies, this collaborative approach to the construction of knowledge will find full expression. This new culture of learning is more democratic, it is more participatory, and it is less hierarchical than the learning institutions of the past, where students were generally consumers of learning, and faculty producers and transmitters. Just this week, Harvard announced it will join MIT in producing online learning environments with the potential to engage millions of learners. So over the next few years, we will need to explore more fully the possibilities of the new culture of learning. What might it mean for those of us who remain committed to learning in place in an intentional residential community? Can we engage alumni in lifelong learning? Can we invite into our campus people physically located in other nations and other places? And how do we prepare our students to be active and critical participants in this new culture of learning for the rest of their lives? Next, diversity and inclusion. The emerging global culture of learning is by its very nature diverse and open, made possible by the ease of digital access. This too extends values already at Knox. When I welcomed the class of 2015, I told them, you will learn the most from the people the least like you. As artists, you will learn from scientists, rural dwellers from city dwellers, young from old, liberals from conservatives, Christians from Muslims, to name only a few of the many dimensions of human difference that you will encounter during your education at Knox. And this is the beauty of the American Liberal Arts College. Nowhere else on earth would people so different from one another live together in a community held together solely by learning, a community where students can pursue their intellectual passions rather than be assigned them by nation, gender, caste, or class. We have always valued the learning that happens when people of very different backgrounds come together. So at this ceremony today, we were greeted by this parade of flags, each representing a nation of origin, each flag representing a nation constructed out of a particular history with boundaries carved by geography or mapped by war and conquest or drawn by force or greed. Each flag symbolizing a culture made up of one or many religions, dances, literatures, languages, and songs. But this wondrous diversity does not always produce the beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King envisioned for us. Not all feel equally welcomed, so we will need to ask ourselves new questions. What would it look like to move from a world of representation in which members of different groups are statistically present to a more inclusive and participatory community in which none are marginal, all are central? What if we put these marvelous forms of human difference at the center of our lives together? What would it feel like? What would it look like to internationalize the campus itself so that every topic reviewed through an appropriate and emerging global lens? How can we teach our students, our faculty, and our staff to engage in difficult intergroup dialogue on divisive topics so that we can understand one another's convictions even as we form from that dialogic process our own commitments? And acting locally, how can we build bridges to our local Galesburg community across differences of age and color and socioeconomic class? To address that question, I am pleased to announce a new partnership with the Galesburg Community Foundation that will place Knox graduates and undergraduates in service positions at Galesburg community agencies over the next year, the Knox Corps. Another thing I learned from the director of the Peace Corps behind me. The Knox Corps will model to our entire student body new ways of civic engagement in local communities, even as they leverage digital technology and global insights. And we'll be releasing more details about this initiative next week. And last, to the sustainability imperative. As I gaze out at the multiplicity of these national flags, I am reminded of the blue marble, an iconic photograph of the Earth floating in space, taken by the crew of the Apollo 17 spacecraft nearly 3 decades ago. From that perspective, the Earth is singular. There are not hundreds of countries. There are no national borders, no visas, no language barriers, just one perfect sphere, breathtaking in its wholeness and its fragility. While we must honor and delight in our differences, we must also search for and embrace our common humanity and our common commitment to the planet that we inhabit together. And to symbolize that commitment, I ask that we add the Earth flag, the blue marble, to our array of national flags and the Knox flag, and fly it from now on at high ceremonial occasions. And so I return now to the poet's words. What young people want and dream across the next 100 years will shape history more than any other motivation to be named. Youth now living and youth as yet unborn hold the deeds and the secrets of the folds to be unfolded in the shapes to come. I think Carl Sandburg would be much at ease with today's Knox students, members of the millennial generation, the most ethnically and racially diverse cohort of youth in this nation's history, and the first for whom digital technologies are everyday parts of their social lives and their searches for understanding and truth. Television brought the Vietnam War into my living room as a baby boomer, but now the internet and the smartphone have brought the world literally into the palms of their hands. I believe that their comfort with digital innovation, their tolerance, and their love of diversity make this generation the first in history to have the capacity to be truly global citizens, able to reach beyond parochial interests to appreciate the stakes of our lives together on the planet. Like the great poet Sandburg, our Galesburg poet, all of us at Knox have hope and faith that this generation, made wise by an education steeped in the great traditions of the residential liberal arts college, can change the world. Unless you, our students, take up this challenge, hundreds of millions will die needlessly in violent conflict or childbirth, from hunger or from obesity, through special vulnerability to natural or man-made disasters, or from environmental degradation. This and nothing less is what is at stake at Knox as we gaze out onto the far horizons of the future. I have that view, you don't. I can see out to the far horizons of the future, just imagine them. And this is why it is such a privilege for me to serve this glorious institution at this remarkable time. Thank you all.